What's up guys, my name is Andre and in this video we're going to be covering the gap fill by time report on edgeful.com. So in this video we're going to be covering RTY, we're going to be looking at the gap fill by time in the last 6 months in the New York session. So what is a gap fill? Gap fill is when price in this session touches the previous session's closing price. So right over here, going to TradingView, now you can see I have these blue boxes here. You can see it's labeled New York. Very important that you understand what that implies here when you have this New York session selected. So you're literally filtering out all of the data outside of this period here from 9:30 to 4. So pretty much you are only looking at the data within these blue boxes and literally ignoring all of the data outside of it. And what that means is in the implication for the gap fill is that your previous day's close is the previous New York close at 4 p.m. So it's the closing price right over here. You can see right there, I marked out my previous close, and you can see in this session, it opened above. So right here, you can see it opens above. So I'll make the gap fill level red. And now you can see that there was a gap up here from the previous New York session. So very specifically, that's not the 4:15 RTH close. That is not the 5 p.m. daily close. That is the 4 p.m. close. Now, if you were to select here the London session with the 11 a.m. ending time, Eastern time, the 11 a.m. closing, this would not be the gap fill level. It would be at 11 a.m. and you can go to your market sessions indicator, which you can get access to by clicking over here off to the right. You can click that button, put your TradingView username in here. The way you find your TradingView username is right here at the top left. Mine is edgeful, yours will be whatever it is. And then you'll see in your indicators, right over here, you're gonna see all the indicators pop up. The one that I'm using is the market sessions right here. So in this case, the London session is here. I'm going to hide the New York for a second. And I'm going to show you that in this case, the previous session's close for the London session was down here. Now there was still a gap up and it did fill within the London session, but your levels are completely different. So if you're using the London session, you need to make sure that you are referencing this price range here, not the New York close. And that applies to any custom sessions you have. It applies to whatever session time you select. It is the close of whatever is right here, and the opening price that you're referencing for the gap up or down is based on this open here. So really important, obviously. So that's that. And now let's mark out my levels again. So that's the previous close. This is today's open. Make that green. Clearly a gap up here, right? Gap fills, price touches the previous close. If you want more details on how this, what the customizations are or anything else, go to the standard report and watch the video. The video is right down here. So make sure to watch the video right over here for the standard report if you want more details on that. But this is the by time, fill time variant. So very importantly, in this case, we are looking only at the gaps that have filled. So super important. And then from here, you have gaps up and then you have gaps down. So you can see right here, you can see gaps up filled before 10:30 a.m. So I have my customization set to the first hour from 9:30 to 10:30. If you're using the London session and the London session starts at 3 a.m., it will be from 3 to 4 p.m. or a.m. So you can see here almost 70% of gaps up that have filled before 10:30. So now if I go and I change, and by the way, what I mean by 10:30 is you can clearly see in the first few minutes here actually on this specific day, the gap did fill. So that we're on the 5-minute chart. It filled within 10 minutes of the market open. 10:30 would be right here. So what this is saying, what this report is saying is that 70% almost, 70% of gaps up that filled before this point right here. Now let's push this out, or I'll show you the gaps down here. So looking at gaps down, you can see almost 80% of gaps down, which is a gap down is when price opens below yesterday's close, will fill, which means price will come up to touch this point before 10:30. Now, if I change my customization here, you can see you can filter for any gap size. The way you look at gap size, you can also see it right up here in the what's in play. This will update every single day, so you don't actually have to do anything. It's all right here. But you can measure right here. This is a 0.74% gap, so you can filter here in the customization by gap size. You can filter for certain gap percentage. And what this means is if you like to target half gaps, then you can look at that here, which would be 50% of a gap fill. And then most importantly for this report is the time. So here, if I select 3 hours, you can see that this is going to change from 9:30 to 12:30 Eastern time. So now 92% of all the gaps down that have filled before 12:30. So now let's move this out to 12:30. So 92% of all gaps down that filled before this point. Let's look at this here. 87% of gaps up that filled before this point. Now, how do you actually use this? The way that you use this is to say, if price hasn't touched my gap fill target by noon, or you can decide whatever your threshold is in terms of the percentage that you're willing to take. But there's a pretty good chance it's not going to happen after this, because of all the ones that did fill, they happened before this time. So let's say it's 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. or 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, and the gap hasn't filled yet. It's probably not going to happen this day because X% of the ones that did filled before this time. So I hope that makes sense. Right here is the table that actually breaks down all the results. This is the explainer video you're watching here. We have some explainer graphs, and then right over here the explainer text. So if you have any questions, please let us know right down here. You can send us a message. It's the easiest way to get a response. If you want to know how this report page works, if you're newer, click right here, how to use reports. This is a great video explaining how to actually navigate this page and what everything is. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.